I'm going to move on now out of department settings into user settings. So the user settings, you remember the My Profile video, and if you haven't watched that, I'd encourage you to do so because we're going to skip over a lot of what we covered in that video here now. So let's, for example, so this is a list of all the users that I have management rights to administer inside of RDS. And I can filter because you need to, because there's a lot of users. We go Ben. So this is everyone that has Ben, the string, Ben in their name. So let's, for example, there's Ben Scales. So I can click on Ben. And now I'm seeing Ben's profile exactly the same as Ben would see his profile if he went to My Profile as per the previous video. So from here, as a manager, I can edit Ben's details. I can change Ben's password. He rings up, hello, I've forgotten my password. We can change the password, modify their special interest groups, look at their contacts, which they've been assigned. In this case, Ben has none. Look at any messages in the system that they've sent and received. And we can also send an individual system alert just to that user as an individual. And those system alerts, again, are on the dashboard on the system alerts widget. So if we sent one there, only Ben would see that message. Now the other part of user settings is user roles and permissions. And this is where a lot of the permission power of RDS access and functionality is done. So you can see here a brief overview of this window. On the left we have the modules, and inside each module, once I select a role, let's jump into, so there's, we'll take a step back. RDS assigns the permissions that users have inside the system by roles, and then each role is granted permissions. So for example, let's go and look at an internal CVC role we have here called the helper, which is effectively a volunteer user that's responding to messages for us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this role's details. And then on the left here, you'll see all the permissions that can be assigned to this role. At the moment, they don't have any. So for example, let's say we wanted to give them permission in email to import messages from a POP email account. We can do that. Let's say we wanted to, in the user module, give permission to manage other users. We can do that. And there's just hundreds and hundreds of these things that we can granularly control how each individual role, what permissions each role has inside of RDS. Effectively, we can have hundreds of these and give individual roles very fine permissions so that they can access, for example, they can send emails but they can't send SMSs. For things like they can access the department module or they can't access the department settings module. They can post notice board posts or they can't post notice board posts. They can comment on notice board posts but they can't. They can or they can't comment on notice board posts. So this is really where a lot of permission power starts to come into it. In terms of assigning, making roles, and then those roles are then assigned to users, which then when they log in, get the permissions that you assigned in the role. I'm going to jump out of user settings and jump into special interest groups. I won't go too much in depth as to what special interest groups are because it's a fairly broad scope and I'd encourage you to read the documentation. But effectively, special interest groups, from a very basic overview, are a way of messages basically can arrive inside special interest groups. Now, how a message gets to a special interest group is via things called keywords. I might give you an example which might be the easiest way to do it. For example, say we've got a show called Chatback. So we have a special interest group called Chatback, which in this demo system has no keywords. We'll assign those. And then any users that are a member of Chatback. So say a message comes in and it contains the word Chatback. That will get assigned to the Chatback special interest group and then from there delegated to a member of that special interest group. So we can then edit that special interest group, add keywords. So say any keyword that had Afghanistan or the Åland Islands or South Korea in the name would arrive in the chatback special interest group. Again, I'll encourage you to read the documentation on this because it's not really clear the way I'm doing it in this video. But effectively know that special interest groups are assigned keywords, and then when messages come in, they're compared to those keywords, and if they match, they're put in that special interest group. And we can edit those keywords, create new keywords, and assign them to each group. There's other ways of categorizing groups if they're program or geographic groups. The admin for the group as well, description, and the usual suspects like the title. We can also, from the special interest group settings, say what users are members of the group. So we can just add users as we see fit to that group and then save it. And now those people are members of the special interest group, and those keywords we added are there as well. So that's a very broad overview of special interest groups. Email account settings. Without going into too much detail, basically email account settings are ways that you can tell RDS what email service it needs to look at to get messages. It's pretty much as simple as that. SMS keywords. You would have seen in the special interest groups we've got assigned keywords. This gives us some more a more detailed way to look at those keywords and say what happens when a message is received containing that keyword. For example, if a message comes in from chat, we can click on that. If we edit that, we can decide whether that message is going to be auto-delegated using the department's workflow settings that we went through before, whether the message is just going to be archived, as in we're not going to deal with this message, just going straight into the archives, or we can also send an auto-reply. So say we wanted to add an auto-reply to the chat keyword, we could say, thanks for your message about chat. And then what that would do is RDS, whenever it received a message containing chat as the keyword, it would send a message back to that user saying, thanks for your message about chat. And that is a very brief overview, but hopefully slightly useful, of all the settings inside of RDS3.